We're live, Leisha. You're live.
Oh, hi everyone. It would be really nice if someone in the chat could actually confirm that you can all hear us okay. And if that's all right, we will then start. So thank you everyone for joining. And let us introduce both of our speakers. So we have Dave Cole, Professor Dave Cole, who has more than 20 years of experience in developing unique immunotherapies. He is currently working in accession therapeutics and patented tumor selective viral gene expression platform known as TROSEPT. In his academic career, Dave worked as a principal investigator and Wellcome Trust Fellow at Cardiff University, studying the nature of T cells antigen recognition after he received his doctor in philosophy in molecular immunology from the University of Oxford, where is currently the company based in. So thank you, Dave, for joining us. And I'm going to let Brandon introduce Julie now.
Yeah, so our second speaker today is Julie Copperthwaite. So Julie is currently the head of group HR operations at OXB. She's got over 30 years of experience in human resources, talent acquisition, and resourcing experience. She's also spent most of this career in kind of life sciences companies, working for large pharmaceutical and biotech companies, RPO and recruitment agencies, CROs, and more. So really got a big wealth of experience in the life sciences recruiting space. So we're very grateful to have them both with us today.
So thank you so much, both of you. And I'm going to let Julie to go ahead and please show us how we need to write our CV or what we need to do if we want to join industry.
Of course. Thank you so much for your introductions. I'm just going to pull up the slide deck. If you could just confirm that you can see that.
Yeah, I can see you. I think everyone can.
Okay, so really just a whistle-stop tour on creating an effective CV, but also we're going to have a quick look at how to promote your brand as an individual. So start with, here's the basics. When you're writing a resume, the key things that you need to consider are what's your biographical journey? Some people feel that you put your education first. Some people feel that you put your work experience first. When you're in education, you probably do put your education first, but when you're starting to look for jobs in commercial environment, probably best to put your work experience and put it in a chronological order. Make it easy to see. A recruiter spends 30 seconds looking at your CV, and if it's of interest to them, they will continue to look at the rest. So it's really important that the poignant information that you want them to see is right there, stood in front of them, so that they can really see everything. Make sure the spelling and grammar is correct on your CV. Quite often I'll look at a CV and it's really difficult to continue with a candidate and push them through to a hiring manager if they've not just taken the time to do a spell checker. Getting the length of your CVs right as well. Too long, too short. If you're a PhD student, you might have 5 or 6 pages of work that you have done that will sit at the back of your CV. But your CV itself shouldn't be more than 4 sides of A4. And in reality, it should only be 2. So bullet points are the key here. Keep it specific and relevant. So as you're looking at the job description for the role that you're interested in, consider, does the CV that you've written match the job description that you're applying for? And if I'm the recruiter looking at it, am I going to see that in the first 30 seconds that you've got the skills and experience that's needed for that role? So the last thing there is think about your audience, which is going to be that recruiter.
Before we did the seminar, just can't reiterate how important what Julie just said is for your CV. Especially a lot of the time, look, I'm more of a hiring manager than an HR expert like Julie is. But when we put an advert out, there's always a set of essential criteria. And if you don't tick the boxes of that essential criteria, it's often very hard to get people into the interview. So you've really got to make sure you go through that and tailor it towards the essential criteria, as Julie was saying.
Fantastic, thanks, Dave. So then looking at CV essentials, name and contact information. I do see CVs where somebody's name is at the top and then there's no way of contacting them. There's no email address, there's no phone number. I could go and have a look at them on LinkedIn and try and see if they've got a LinkedIn account that I can contact them with. But if it's not easy to contact you, then you're probably not going to hit the top 10 CVs. Personal profile or statement. These are probably one of the hardest things to consider and write. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about those in a moment. But they are important. A CV is generally just a bunch of bullet points of the things that you've done, but your personal statement is what throws your personality out at your audience. So you really want to use it as an opportunity to highlight and share who you are and what you've done in the past. Your skills and competencies, they need to be in a separate section to your employment history. You might want to put them before your employment history or after employment history, entirely up to you. But this is basically an opportunity for a recruiter who's got 30 seconds to say, these people are saying that they have these skills and competencies, and that makes the recruiter want to continue to read. Your employment history. Now, if you're a student, you're probably thinking, well, I've only really done jobs in Greggs or in a restaurant or anything like that. That's really important to add those things, because as an employer, what we look at is some of that information that you are sharing, which gives an indication of your learning ability in different tasks and your willingness to learn different tasks. So it's always important to add those in. Volunteering experience. So I know lots of people do volunteering, whether it's a scout leader or whether it's supporting specific charities. That's a really good opportunity for people to see your personal exposure. So always share that. Education. I know lots of people ask, do I put in my PhD? Do I put in my MSc? What do I add in there? It's personal choice, and we're going to talk about that a little bit further in a minute. But really, you want the person to see what you've done. Awards and certifications. So if you have done a health and safety certification, or you have been involved in first aid or any of those things, always good to mention those in your CV. If you've got any professional affiliations, so for example, you might be a member of the Chemistry Society or any other kind of society, put those in. And hobbies and interests and pastimes, not a key essential in my mind, but they do help somebody to understand what you like to do when you're not working. Dave, any kind of comments or thoughts?
Yeah, of course. Again, completely agree with everything you're saying, and just to sort of reinforce what I often look for when I'm looking at a CV. For say that personal profile part, that statement, I really like to have a short version of that in the CV as if possible, and if you can, make that personal statement essentially be your rationale for why you're the best person for the job, according to what the job description is in the advert. Often when you're skimming lots of CVs, the rest of the bullet point stuff is important. But if you're in that frame of mind straight away, when this person has really tailored the first part of their CV towards that position have said why they fulfilled those unique criteria, it really helps you to, you know, understand that person is someone who could do the job properly. In terms of, employment history and volunteering, the only other thing I would say on that, and I think, Julie, you'll probably cover this in a minute, so apologies, is think about the translational skills. So when you come into a job, things like timekeeping, working in a team, problem solving, all of these things you generally do with any job, no matter how basic or complex it is. So if you can show you've done that in a professional setting, again, it gives you the recruiter or the hiring manager confidence, and you can do that kind of thing. The only other one I'll mention here is the hobbies one, and we talked about this a little bit in the pre-meeting we had. I agree that the hobbies aren't necessarily essential, but sometimes if you've got an unusual hobby, it can help the hiring manager to remember your CV. And this has happened a few times. I remember a CV where somebody was like a professional, not ballet dancer, salsa dancer or something like that. It's just something a little bit different. And it kind of helps you. If you need to be able to stand out with this sea of CVs, is there something you can do in your CV so the person will remember you? It could be with that personal profile statement at the beginning, but it could also be with an unusual or an interesting hobby that you can put in. So that's all I wanted to say on that slide.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, the CV format. I'm sure many of you are looking at those CVs at the bottom thinking, oh, the one on the left looks really exciting and the one on the right looks really boring. So there's a slight challenge with having a creative CV. So when you send your CV into an applicant tracking system, which is where your CV will go when you apply to jobs, that system only reads in lines. So if you look at the CV on the left-hand side, the first thing that somebody will read is professional profile contacts. And if you look at it that way, it reads straight across the page. So in that system, there's something called resume parsing. And what happens in that is it pulls out your career history and it pulls out certain information and auto-populates the tracking system. So when you then hit submit and you go through, you'll find that your history, your employment history and your education will already be pre-populated, and it's what it's pulled from the system. The challenge is if you haven't got it in straight lines, it's probably going to come through as an absolute mess and you're going to have to repopulate the whole thing. So it's actually quite key to have a really plain and boring CV so that you don't have to do things twice. The other thing is that if you are not being recruited in a GDPR-based country, so basically UK or Europe, countries outside of that can use auto reject. So basically the computer will decide whether you are rejected or whether you go through for review by the recruiter. And in that instance, if it cannot read your CV and therefore pick out the key words because of the way it's been drafted, you could automatically be rejected without anyone physically seeing your CV. Doesn't happen in the UK, doesn't happen in Europe. GDPR protects you. But if you're doing it outside of there, you may find that you're rejected if you haven't got a plain and simple, boring CV, I'm afraid. Dave, any comments or thoughts?
I didn't know that at all, so I was really interested when it. So yeah, nothing to add, but it's a really interesting point.
Thanks. Okay, so job history. Think about what the employer is looking for in the job that you're applying for. So you may have a standard CV, which is one that you use as your template. But as you're applying for different roles, what you might do is adapt that CV so that you can show either your exact experience that meets the essential requirements or what's transferable into that role based on what you've done previously. So as you're writing it, think about some of the things that the employer wants to see and put it in bullet points, because you've got 30 seconds. So make sure it's really easy and simple with the keywords for somebody to see that. Achievements and awards. So if you have been Employee of the Month, or you have received some kind of accolade for some work that you have done with that employer, highlight it. That shows that you are willing to go above and beyond, that you have achieved certain things within that organisation. Reason for leaving. It could be that you've been made redundant, and this is becoming more commonplace, unfortunately. So if you have been made redundant, don't feel that you can't say that as your reason for leaving. There's no issue with that whatsoever. Having a reason for leaving means that nobody's going to ask you a question about it when you go for interview. But if you don't put that in there, then somebody is probably going to ask you why you left that organisation. Gaps in work history. It's okay. People go on maternity leave. People have sabbaticals. People have time away and go and travel around the world. It's no big deal. It's actually part of life and what we do. So just make sure that if you finished a job in 2022 and you didn't start a new one until June 2023, that you've just got an explanation for what you were doing in that time, just so that the employer can see what you've been up to and there aren't any career gaps that might raise a concern for them. Dave, any comments from yourself?
Not too many, apart from those last 2 points can be really, really important. And I've been in a situation before looking at CVs where we had 3 outstanding CVs. I know it's probably more than that. Actually, we were thinking about who to get in for interview. So we had a bunch of outstanding CVs. We didn't want to get everybody in, and there was one there where there's like a 2.5-year gap that wasn't explained, and that was a reason we decided not to get that person for interview. So understanding why those gaps are there is really important to put in. Don't be afraid of it, unless I suppose you spent 3 years in prison or something. But anyway, I digress.
Not quite sure how you'd write that in a CV.
No, I'm just not sure. There's still transferable skills, I'm sure, that you could put in.
But sometimes those career gaps are actually quite, they're doing something that is of real relevance to what someone's trying to do. So it's always good to put that information in there. Okay, education. I did say we'd come back to this. Always put it in reverse chronological order. So your most recent qualification at the top. If you have got PhD, MSc, BSc, you may choose not to put in GCSE, A-levels and HND. But if there's something key in there, then please do include it. It's your CV. This is about you. So it's just an opportunity to ensure that people know what level of qualification you have obtained. Please be aware that most organisations these days will do a background check. So they will go and check the universities that you're stating that you obtain these qualifications from. So just be sure that you can evidence that. Dave, I know that you have on this as well.
Yeah, on this one, it's a bit horses for courses, I think, as you say, Julie. I mean, maybe if you got 4 A stars at A levels, you may want to put that in because that's really outstanding. But as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, I only really care about the last few things you've done and how relevant they are to the job. So, for example, with my CV, I only put my PhD down and my undergrad degree. I've never really gone beyond that. So, I mean, unless the application specifically wants to know your A levels and GCSEs, I really think that those high level educational things you may have done are the more important things, because that's the most recent history.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, so personal statement. As an introverted person, writing these is probably my worst fear, simply because I don't like saying positive things about myself, and I find that particularly difficult. But what I'd say to you is think about the type of role that you are applying to. Take some notes of what you see as being the key advantages of you joining an organisation. and think about the structure of the statement that you're going to write. One key thing I will say is AI is fantastic, but as a recruiter that can review 100 CVs a day, if you've written it by ChatGPT or through Copilot or any other AI, I'll be able to pick that out in about 2 seconds because they all look the same. If you wanted to use a tool to help you structure a few sentences within it, that's okay. But the thing to remember here, this is about you personally. It's about your personality. It's about the things that you want to share that are the key advantages of you as a potential employee in the future. So think about the types of things that you might want to put in there. If you are going to add your goals in there, just consider one thing. A lot of people write a template CV and they put at the bottom of it, keen to get a job as a QA officer, and they've applied for a scientist role. So just remember, if you've got a template and you're going to put a sentence like that in, make sure you change the title of the job before sending the application so that you're always applying for the job and not just with your template CV. Dave?
Spot a template CV and they just go in the bin. You know, if there's nothing there to prove that you've tailored it to that particular job, you don't look at it. And just like with the ChatGPT thing, you spot those within a couple of seconds.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay.
Actually, the other advice on that, because I do agree with you, Julie, that it's a little bit scary and a little bit embarrassing to write good things about yourself. Although I do think bear attack is scarier, so it's not my top fear. But one thing that really helps with that is getting one or two of your peers to read it and even help to rewrite it, because they won't be as embarrassed. They're more likely to be able to say to you, actually, you know, be strong about that. You really have done that well. So you don't need to be almost apologetic about it. So that's something I've done in the past and it's been really helpful. It's much easier to be positive and strong about somebody else than you. So use that to your advantage, I would say.
Yeah, that's great advice, Dave. I think you know, anything that you're writing or producing, you'll always get somebody else to review. I certainly do. And I think in this case, if you've got somebody who can hold a mirror up to you and say, this is who you are, that can always help you to write it. Fantastic. Okay. So going to move on to building your online brand. So before we start in this section, some good news and some bad news. The good news is that the UK economy is starting to upturn and we're starting to see more jobs coming available. But as we sit right now, the job market is quite low. So having your own brand online and being willing to apply directly to organisations is going to be really key for you. Many companies have chosen not to use agency at what we call early career level jobs, because in that arena there are more candidates than there are vacancies. So if you want to be considered for a position, you need to be applying to the companies directly. A company who has a recruitment team is not going to pay 20% of your starting salary to an agency when they're able to obtain direct applications. So from your perspective, it does mean that you're going to have to do some work. And unfortunately, I'm sure many of you have experienced the letdown of either not receiving any response whatsoever when you apply, an automated reply, or it takes ages for somebody to come back to you and tell you anything. And as a recruiter, I can only apologise for that experience. But it does take a lot of effort to find the right job for you. And this is where building your online brand is going to help you. Okay, so I've focused a lot of this around LinkedIn, but this does apply for any type of social media. But what you need to consider is, if you've got social media that you use for your personal and social life, it may not be the same as what you might want to use for your professional life. If you are somebody who uses Snapchat or any other means for personal and social, where you're putting videos of fun that you're having, you may not want to use that for professional. So LinkedIn is that place where anything to do with work, and is where recruiters will go to look for your CVs. It's your opportunity to sell yourself. Again, it's a bit like that personal statement. It feels uncomfortable, but you know, it's always good to make sure that you are using the tool that every company tends to use when building your brand. So LinkedIn. So as a recruiter, we pay a license through LinkedIn, which enables us to get full access to anybody who's on LinkedIn. If you are currently on LinkedIn, you will see the people that you're connected to and what they call second connections, so their connections. That's the breadth of your ability to look for people on LinkedIn. As a recruiter, I can see the 5 billion people who sit on LinkedIn. There is no restriction on my access to people who are a member of LinkedIn and have an account. What that means is, when we are recruiting for specific jobs, we have a tool that enables us to search all of those people, and it comes back with a response with the people who are suitable for that role. Sometimes, because those searches are so specific, it may come back with 5 or 6 people across the world who can do something. On other occasions, if we're looking for individuals who may have, been to university along with lots of other people, those searches are going to be huge. And you can imagine the number of people who might come back on a search like that. So what's important for you is to create a searchable profile. Have a profile that recruiters can search based on the keywords that you have within your LinkedIn account. There's several ways of doing that. The first is that, whatever you put into your CV, copy and paste it and have that as your profile. Nice and simple. So you put your job history in there, your education in there, the personal statement, add all of that into your LinkedIn account. Nice and simple. But then what you need to look at is the keywords. There are areas within your LinkedIn account where you can add specific keywords. It might be chemist, it might be downstream processing, it might be HPLC, it could be anything that you have had experience in. And then if a recruiter is looking for those keywords, you will automatically come up on that search because those key things are in your profile. You might want to start thinking about posting content. So keep it professional. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but you might want to post some things out there of what you've been doing and what you're doing from a professional perspective. There is an opportunity round your picture. You've probably seen it. People have their photograph and then they have a little green sign around their picture that says open to work. That's one of the settings that you can choose, which means that as a recruiter, we can immediately see that you're available and looking for something. Build your network. Start joining different groups that you might be interested in. Dave, any kind of thoughts or comments? You're on mute, Dave.
Yeah, sorry. No, I really agree on LinkedIn as a tool. We always use it if we're planning on even getting someone for interview, because it's a lot of resource to commit to as a company. And of course, we use it as part of the decision making on who we're going to offer the job to. I just caution as well that if you're using particularly Facebook, it's another one that we will try and have a look at just to get a bit more of a feeling. So you don't want anything too incriminating on there or too much that's not in line with what you have with LinkedIn, especially if you're applying for jobs. So think about those other social networks that people may have access to as well, because why wouldn't you? And I was just having a quick look at my LinkedIn actually, because this for me links in very nicely back to that personal statement that you have at the top of your CV. And I think, Julie, that's what you mean by the brand, or it's part of the brand.
Yeah.
But that's quite an easy way to set out what you've got. So for me, for example, I thought quite a lot about the section in LinkedIn where it says about. So in there, I've really tried to put down what I think makes me stand out in general for any jobs. Of course, the only difference there is on LinkedIn, you can do something that's quite general because you don't know what job you're going for. When you're writing your CV or your personal statement, take that sort of brand statement and again, try and tailor it for the particular job that you're going for. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if I was going for a job in biotechnology, depending on the role, I would be highlighting the experience I have there, the experience with managing and delivering on projects and working in teams. If I was going for more of an academic role, I might choose to focus more on, the grants I've got or the publications or the PhD students I've trained, for example, or the teaching. But that's a good opportunity to put that brand in. And I think recruiters do use it, especially if you're in the headhunting space.
Yeah. Every day.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So creating that profile, think about your banner and your headshot. So if you look at your profile, you've got two options to add pictures. You can add a banner at the back of you, which provides some knowledge of you. You may decide to use it. Some people don't use it at all. And then you have your headshot. I have seen some LinkedIn accounts where the headshot is their cat or their dog or some sort of funny cartoon meme. Just remember, this is a professional platform. This is how you promote yourself to an employer. So you might want a professional picture on there. When we were talking about contacts, just reminded me, when we were talking about contact information on your CV, think about your email address. I have come across some funny ones, which, as a personal person who has a good sense of humour, loopylouise@gmail.com is actually quite funny. But when it's a professional environment, Louise may not want her professional tone to be that of someone who's humorous. So just think about the types of things that you're purveying in your CV, but also on your profile. So the sections, the elevator pitch, as we talked about, that's your personal statement. It's about who you are, what you're trying to purvey to people. Anybody who's ever written an elevator pitch, it's normally 30 to 60 seconds, so probably 3 or 4 sentences. What's your mission? What are you trying to achieve? What is it you're looking to do? And what makes you different? What is your unique selling point that makes you stand out from the rest? There's a featured section, so highlighting posts and articles. It could be posts that you've written, articles you've written, or it could be posts that you've liked from somebody else. And because they're of interest to you, you've shared them. Or articles that you've written or shared, they will all come up in your features section. Career history and education, copy and paste from your CV. Make sure that you have got your key achievements in there. As it says there, it's your time to boast and it's your opportunity to sell yourself. Recommendations is another key part of your profile. If you've worked with a professor who you think will give you a good recommendation or a good referral, or you have a colleague or a friend who can recommend you for a piece of work that you have done, or working with them, or your manager, or anybody who can provide you with a recommendation, it's always great to put those on there because they will give you a recommendation. You can choose whether you share it or not into the system. So don't worry. It's not like people can write recommendations. It's not Glassdoor. You can choose whether people can see them or not. And it just helps as you go through your career. If you have a look at mine, for example, you'll see that I've got recommendations from people who I've either worked with, have worked for me, or clients that I have supported when I ran my own business. So it's an opportunity to really get those recommendations, and people can look at those. A recruiter will look at those because that is your references, if you like, from people that you know. Dave, over to you.
Recommendation thing, so go and do that now. But yeah, I don't have any other comments for that. I completely agree with you. But yeah, that recommendations one, that's going to be my job for the rest of the week, I think. If anyone will give me a good recommendation, of course, I'm not convinced they will, but I'll have a go.
It's also a nice character boost as well, because when you start
That's
seeing
true.
them, you think, oh, is that what they really thought of me? It's actually quite nice. Okay, engaging with people. So it comes down to, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So the more people that you are connected with and are in your network on a LinkedIn, for example, means that you're going to be seen by more people. So if you remember that your first contacts and their contacts are what you can see, if somebody is looking for somebody who has a certain experience in the system and they don't have a recruiter license, if you're connected to more and more people, your ability to build that network grows, because just by being connected to Dave, I've now got access to all of Dave's contacts. And by Dave being connected to me, he now has all of my contacts. So that's how you start to build that network of people. It becomes a bit of a spider's web with all of the people that you have connected with you. Think about the types of comments that you might want to write on posts. I'm quite a nervous person when it comes to writing things. I'm like I said earlier, I'm an introvert. So if somebody says they've got a new job, I'll say congratulations, good luck. It might be that someone writes an article and I completely agree with them, and I'll put a little bit on there about great read, great to hear others have the same perspective. Just little comments that enable you to also boost your network, because your networks will see your comments on people's posts. And that's how I've started to build my community. I'm not one for great community building. I'm not one for lots of social media. So for me, those little things are what have got me started and have started to build that network. Dave, what about you? Do you like posting things?
Yeah, so I mean, I tend to post publications. I've seen people write sort of opinion pieces, and sometimes they're quite impactful. I haven't done one of those myself. Just haven't really thought about it enough, but I suppose that could be quite useful to do. And then, of course, using it for general company PR, we use it a lot for that. So reposting, liking, saying congratulations to people is quite a good way of going. Yeah, actually, a question for you. So, I mean, personally, we've only ever really used LinkedIn and maybe a little bit of a Facebook check if we can when people come in. What do you think about things like X and some of these other platforms for rating your profile? Do you think that has any impact as well, or is it a bit less?
I think the thing is with X, or Twitter as it used to be called, is that it's momentary. So you'll see it, but it goes up the feed very quickly. And unless somebody is sitting there scrolling, it's unlikely that they're going to see what you've written, unless their network is that small that, you know, they're only going to get so many feeds through Twitter. So I think Twitter, we've tried to use it in the past. I've tried to use it for promoting jobs, but they go up the feed so fast that people miss them. So I think that's the challenge with a tool like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, as I said, we've not really used that for recruitment stuff. I think the only other thing I would say is this engaging with people thing. It's brilliant that we've got things like LinkedIn to do it through. What has the most impact for me personally is a recommendation from someone I know. So I think that these engaging with people through LinkedIn, then hopefully you meet them at a conference or a professional event, you get to know them a little bit. That personal contact is still really important, and for me that has the biggest impact. So I think things like LinkedIn are just a route to get those real personal connections.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I haven't been to too many conferences of late, but I found them in the past a great way to connect and find new jobs, but also a great way to connect and find new candidates. So, I find people over the years still contact me either on WhatsApp or some other means because we've connected in some way. And over the years, you gradually build up that network of people who you perhaps don't talk to on LinkedIn. You found other ways of communicating with them, but they become people that you can trust and go to when you've got specific queries or thoughts that you want to share.
Exactly. Yeah, I suppose actually you saying that has helped me to crystallize what I'm trying to say a bit more. And it's really about having a good network. So LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to do it, but it's not like you just have to do a LinkedIn thing. It's more of a means to an end to get a good network.
Yeah, it's a good starting point.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so follow and participate in groups. If you are going to write an article, try to keep it professional. There's a selling and then there's a let's just show your expertise. And I think one thing you need to be cautious of being a professional environment is you don't need to sell if you're sharing something that is going to be of interest to people who are reading it. So you want to be looking as if you are the expert in your field, and in many instances you probably are. If you have studied something very specific, then you're going to be an expert in that area, and that's something that you can quite freely talk about. But you don't need to sell yourself in doing that, because what you've written will do that for you. Join some of the groups that are on LinkedIn. There are loads and loads of industry groups. So of course, working in OXB, lots of cell and gene therapy type groups that our professional scientists are joined with. It could be that if you're a statistician, there's lots of statistics, pharmacovigilance, safety, all sorts of different groups in LinkedIn. And you could just type them in at the top, do a search, and they will come up and you can apply to join them. Generally, somebody has to accept you. So what they'll do is they'll go and have a look at your profile to see that you match that group with the experience that you're showing in your profile. But it's always good to get attached to those, because then you'll start to see their posts. You can like their posts and people will start to get your name if that's the area of industry that you want to get into. Like I said earlier, if there are posts that you see and you think, actually, I really relate to that, put a comment or like, or think about something that you might want to say on there that's relevant to what the person has written. Feel confident, write a post or tell a story. I've just said to you, I'm an introvert. It's not my favourite thing. It's not something I enjoy doing. If you actually look at my profile, you'll see I haven't written too many posts. Most of the things that I'm sharing are jobs for OXB, and it's very rare that I will tell a story, probably because I lack the confidence to feel that I have a story worth telling. But that's a personal issue. But for you guys, hopefully you'll feel confident enough to go out there and start selling who you are and telling that lovely story. Dave?
Nothing to add to that, Julie. I agree with you.
Okay, searching and applying. So as I said to you earlier, the job market is not as buoyant as you might like for early careers. So there's going to be a lot of work on your end to be able to obtain that role that you're looking for in industry. There's a number of different ways to do that. It could be through generic or specific job boards. I've listed some of them at the bottom that you could potentially utilise here in the UK. You could go to the company specific websites. So for example, if there's a company that you really want to work for, you can go in, you can actually just put in your name and your email address, and you can sign up for notifications to come to your email inbox. And what that means is when jobs come up that are of the specific type that you're looking for, you'll just get an email notification, which is really easy. You haven't got to keep going back in to that company website and looking every so often to see what jobs are there. You'll automatically get that notification to apply for it. They can get a little bit annoying once you've found a job, so you might want to turn them off at that point. But while you're looking, it makes your life easier. Boolean search. So Boolean is, I've just put on the right hand side some of the symbols and things that you can use when trying to create Boolean searches. If you're looking for something really, really specific, what you don't want to do is just type in scientist, because you're going to get hundreds of thousands of jobs. And what you might be looking for is an upstream scientist, or something in cell and gene therapy, or something in pharmacovigilance, or something in QA. So you might want to be a little bit more specific. And by using Boolean, you can create a string which enables you to specifically only get responses back based on what you've asked for. A lot of the AI tools can do some of this for you now. So if you go in and put in a prompt that says, I'm looking for a Boolean search to enable me to do this, it will give you one. And then all you do is put that in your search for your browser, and it will come up with those searches for you. If you see companies that you're interested in, like it says there, follow them. And when you're making your applications, try to ensure that you are not just using a template application. Again, make sure that it is specific to the role. If you have a cover letter, you may want to adapt that cover letter so that when you're applying for specific companies, you're highlighting why you're specifically applying to them. As a recruiter, the first thing I'm going to look at is your CV. And if your CV is interesting, then I'm going to have a look at your cover letter. So it does go that way round. So just make sure your CV is exactly how you want it to be, but then also make sure that your cover letter is specific. Dave, any additional thoughts?
Again, nothing to add on that one, Julie. I think you covered it really nicely.
Cool. Okay. So my last slide, summary. Be visible, be different, be active. You need to stand out from the crowd. You are going to need to think about what your unique selling points are. Because if you want to be considered for roles, you need to be out there, you need to be seen. And there are lots of ways to brand yourself, but in reality, you will decide how you do that. But from my point of view, I wish you all the very best of luck and look forward to seeing your applications. Dave?
Perfect.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's any questions. I don't know how many people we've got online, or maybe Ali and
We've got one or two questions coming out. So thank you both so much for all your time with this. It's been really insightful. So our first question, we've got kind of covered slightly already. It's about LinkedIn. So is it important to post anything? I don't like posting. Do I need to be more social on LinkedIn? Which is, I think, something we can all relate to, is the feeling self-conscious posting on things like this. And I think you've already touched on it. It's really about making yourself visible and getting those connections in.
It is really, really difficult to, if you're not a confident person, it's really difficult to do that. So the cheats way of doing it is to respond to other people's posts, so that you're only needing to write 1 or 2 sentences, liking different things. That's what goes out to your network. So if you're feeling that you haven't quite got the confidence to write something, don't feel you have to. but what it does do is help you build that network and brand that you would want other people to see.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think posting is necessarily essential. I mean, as a hiring manager, I'll go on someone's LinkedIn profile and look at their homepage. I won't necessarily go through all their posts, but anything you can do, as Julie says, to really get the network vibrant and as good as it can be is useful.
Thank you. I'll then make the next question that we have. So, when posting, should a post have an inspirational tone, or just stating an achievement and describing it is enough? Would it appeal more to a potential recruiter if one is more creative when posting?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question. So I'm going to answer two separate things there. One is about achievements. And if you are talking about your achievements, they should absolutely be in your profile. And you should be highlighting them and boasting about them, if you like. But that's your opportunity to do so in your profile. If you're posting something, you don't want to be selling. You want to be giving somebody something that they're going to want to read. And that's the difference. So your profile is your opportunity to boast, but postings are something that somebody wants to read. And that's the difference. Hopefully that's answered the question. Dave, how did you read that question?
Using inspirational to describe, trying to make it like a political speech that would inspire people. I think a lot of people will find that quite cheesy and not very honest. Unless that is your personality, then fair enough. But I wouldn't try and force that. I'd try and be honest with the way you're writing it.
Perfect, thank you. We don't seem to have any more questions in the chat at the moment. I've got a quick one which I'm sort of interested in. I think you might partially answered this with your with respect to the UK and EU's GDPR things, but how have you found that kind of AI has affected the recruiting scene at the moment? So are you seeing a lot of applications that are kind of have AI content in them, and also are you using any kind of AI tools that are screening out candidates before they've had a chance?
So AI generated CVs has become quite a thing. You can spot them very easily. It is very unfortunate, and people are using AI to create their cover letters as well, and that's really obvious. You can get 3 CVs and the CVs look very different, and all 3 cover letters are identical because people have literally just copy and pasted the cover letter in as what they're using. So I would say always remember that this is about your personality. Make it different, make it stand out, and make it a unique selling point. If you're using an AI tool, you're automatically putting yourself inside the crowd because lots of people are doing the same thing right now. With regards to auto qualification, so using AI tools to determine whether somebody is suitable and should be considered for a role or not. Under GDPR, it's actually not legal to do that in UK and Europe. So therefore, anybody in those areas are currently protected by those laws. If you are applying to roles in other parts of the world, they may be choosing to use those types of tools. And there are some countries that are using them. I'm a believer in human touch, so we would never use them anyway. But there are organisations where they are receiving thousands of applications every day, and they need to try and use some way of sifting. So I'm sure in other organisations in other countries that may be being used.
Perfect, thank you.
I can't comment too much on that. We look at all of our CVs personally, like the hiring managers look through them. We're quite a small organisation. I've not thought about AI, but I think those are the generic ones straight away and throw in the bin. It is really obvious.
Brian, can I make a question myself?
Of course you can.
I was wondering, because this is a webinar, BSECT is the British Society of Gene and Cell Therapy, but what about if you're trying to apply it for any other company outside the UK? Do you would all these advice is like a general advice for any company, or would you say that these only applies for the UK?
I would say a lot of what we've talked about today is generic across any country across the world. I wouldn't say that the CV or branding that we've talked about today would be any different in any other country. Recruiters, a lot of companies, because they are so big, will have recruitment teams in each country. Other organisations might have a centralised recruitment team based anywhere in the world, and therefore the types of CVs they're seeing need to have exactly the same detail within them that we've talked about today. Nothing would change there.
Applying for a job, particularly in science, people want to see that you thought about it because it's the nature of the job. So I think those general principles that Julie has covered, it's logical. You've got to do that in any country, surely. I don't know, but it just seems logical to me that people want to know that you've looked at the job application, you've thought about why you're good for that post, and you've put together your personal statement in your CV in a thoughtful manner, really directed against that post to try and differentiate yourself.
Thank you both.
I mean, I can remember many years ago when I was recruiting for Germany, and in Germany there was a very different way of recruiting. So you would receive a whole booklet in paper format from a candidate, and what that booklet would have within it is the CV, it would have their original qualification certificates, and it would have original reference letters. And that was how you received every application from a candidate. So you would have it hand posted to you in paper format. And when you had finished with that, you needed to post it back to the individual, because obviously they would then want to make applications elsewhere. So that's how it used to work many moons ago. Germany has shifted from that way of working, and they also have applicant tracking systems now. So the way that you would apply in Germany is pretty much the same as the UK. And probably of all the countries that I've recruited in around the world, and there's been a lot of them, that was probably the most unique.
Thank you.
So one more question, if you're happy to stay around another couple of minutes. Can you suggest some good and free tools for checking ATS scores?
Checking ATS scores.
I don't know what that means, so I can't answer it.
So if the person asking it has any more info on what that means,
Yeah,
then please feel free to add it to the chat again.
there are, I mean, I think
Alexis.
what they might be relating to is within an applicant tracking system tool, there are some tools whereby the system will rate a CV based on the keywords, and it will give a percentage of likelihood that that CV is relevant to the job that's being applied to. So there are some tools out there that will do that. I personally have never worked with them. I'm old school. Human touch to me is important. So I've never used a tool of that type. So unfortunately, I'm not able to comment on how they work or what the algorithm is that sits behind it.
Okay, thank you very much.
So there's another question from the same person. As an undergraduate student who's graduating soon, how long of a CV is ideal when I apply for a job?
Dave, do you want
Yeah, I was going to say my opinion on that is never more than 2 pages. I think if it's half a page, that looks a little bit light. So probably between 1.5 pages and 2 pages is ideal. Aim for that. Use the space wisely. Try and get those main messages at the top, because people will read from the top to the bottom, and they may not read all of it. But yeah, I think 2 pages is about optimal for me.
Thank you. I'm guessing that applies in general or just undergrad?
In general, yeah, if it's longer than that, it's hard to read. I mean, you can, if you've got more stuff that you want to send in, you can ask potentially if you can send them an appendix.
Okay.
And that's maybe more relevant for an academic job where you want to do your publications lists and things. But I certainly wouldn't send that at the beginning, because it's just going to go in the bin.
Cool. Thank you. Well, if we don't have any questions, unless Brandon, do you have any questions?
I've got no more questions.
Cool. Thank you both. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you everyone who joined the line and asked questions. It makes this so much easier. Yeah, the person who asked about the ATS is saying is what we're talking about. So that's great. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough.
Good luck, everybody. I'm very happy to be contacted through LinkedIn or whatever if anybody has other questions.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Julie, but I
Yeah,
won't speak for you.
absolutely. Always happy to build my network.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I could build my network more if people contact me. That's great.
I'll send you my invite now.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thanks very much, everybody. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.